Bunker Project, episode number 4. This week on the Bunker Project, we have two very special guests talking about social media marketing in the Ukraine and social marketing in the automotive industry. And welcome back again to another episode of the Bunker Project, live to hard drive in the bunker. Hello, Bob.
Hello.
And we've this is our second podcast in a row.
Yeah, back to back, basically.
Back to back in meetup number 3. And we've got 2 guests and a live studio audience. We're going to take questions after.
No, I'm just so stoked. There are so many people, like 50, 60 people in the room? Well, okay, it's a small room, maybe not that many. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guests. It's awesome. I mean,
There you go.
the thing is if we can get like 50 people in this room, it'd be a little out of control, I think.
And, you know, the internet's a wonderful thing because one of our guests is all the way from the Ukraine.
Okay, that's a great intro. So shall we go jump right into the interview? Or
Absolutely. He works for a PR firm in the Ukraine, and they're just now getting into social media now as well. And that fits in perfectly. He saw us on meetup.com and sent me an email saying he's going to be coming down, and here he is.
Yeah, he flew in specifically for the show, I hear.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
So my name is Volodymyr, and I really came from Ukraine just yesterday and still recovering from the jet lag.
I love your name. How do you pronounce it again?
Volodymyr.
Voldemort, not
Yeah.
Voldemort. No, that sounds like the Harry Potter
Voldemort.
guy. Voldemort. It's like,
Yeah,
you must get. Do you get a lot of that?
Yeah.
Only from the girls. He's so evil.
And I'm really enjoying Canada. And I must say to everyone, do come to Vancouver because they have free Wi-Fi at the airport, which is rare.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll take the $5 train to get there to use the free Wi-Fi.
Well, compared to Amsterdam or any other European airports, they don't get any free Wi-Fi.
Really?
Yep.
You got to pay for it.
Yeah, you need to pay.
That sucks.
In Seattle as well, I believe.
Well, this is a third world country. So, no, did he sneak that in? Nasty. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening. Now, you're specialized in PR,
Yep,
right? Which
that's
is
right.
public relations. What's going on there in Europe for public relations? Are you doing lobbying stuff, public relations, or is it just general public relations?
It's mostly general public relations, and my firm is doing both business to business and business to customer public relations for a variety of firms in financial services, telecom services, basically anything from toothbrush to asset management companies.
Okay. So, toothbrush, asset management. Who's your funnest client? I mean, do you have a wild, crazy client out there that's like, let's do something crazy PR? Or is it more traditional? Safe
We
PR?
in PR have a thing called NDA. So I cannot really tell anything about my most funny client.
Because
Yeah.
it's...
Was it Durex? We talked about that.
How about your competition's like, but our competition, that's a different story. But okay, so you've got a bit of the NDA protecting you there. What about PR in general? What's a really cool PR stunt that happened in Europe recently?
In Europe, well, let me just give you a
yeah.
very brief introduction of Ukraine and what it is. It's like East European country with about 50 million people there, and the recent research shows that like 12 million of those are online, and 40% of those 12 million are on social networks, which is not too much in terms of Canada, I guess.
But percentage for population,
Yeah, percentage
it's
for
huge.
population, and normally this is the population that can buy stuff, that has some disposable income.
So basically the Coca-Cola demographic.
Oh yeah, although Coca-Cola is not too active online, although they did bring 3 of their bloggers as a part of their sort of global blogger tour.
Really?
Yeah, they
Well, tell me about that. Well, I mean,
they have
Coca-Cola bloggers?
Yeah, they have a huge
Hey, I see a
long-term-
new niche for us.
Yeah, they have a huge long-term, year-long project where they chose 3 bloggers from different countries who travel through 206 countries
Wow.
throughout the year. And these are the countries where they sell Coca-Cola. And they sort of travel in pursuit of happiness. because
so Coke and
Coca-Cola,
rum, Coke and
happiness, yeah, and they just came to Ukraine recently and met with some Ukrainian bloggers and stuff.
So what do they talk about? Like cool street stuff or
Mostly about their experience of traveling and looking for happiness in terms of Coca-Cola.
Is Coca-Cola just there as a, as a brand that's sponsoring the blog, or are they actually?
their staff?
Well, they're paying for it.
But
they
are they incorporating that right into the content of the blog, or is it just?
Oh yeah. They have a standalone website, Coca-Cola X 2006, I think, or something, where they cover videos, photos, texts, all of their experiences.
Yeah, I remember. Coca-Cola is okay. They got a little bit of money to blow, but they've done some amazing kind of quasi-social media stuff. Remember a couple of years ago, they had that video out where they had all these people, and they created a Coca-Cola bottle out of all these people, and that was shot in Europe, and it poured, and it was very, very cool. Do you know where that was held? It was in Rome or something like that.
No.
But that's part of their branding as an active street level cool product.
They have people on Granville Street that the Coca-Cola trucks pull up, and they come out and do their street dancing and give away bottles of Coke.
Is it
So
like
it's-
the micro bottles or the big bottles?
The full bottle of Coke.
And okay, so I was at an event, and I know it was Coke or somebody like that, and there's this huge lineup of people. It was Coke, that's right. Huge lineup of people at the street event in Burnaby, and they were ignoring everybody else. It was terrible. Sorry, they're not a sponsor, so I get to dish them. Yeah. But black beer, on the other hand, is a fantastic product.
We're buttering.
Always does it again. He sneaks in the black beer.
But still not a
buttering them
sponsor.
up for a
Yeah,
sponsor.
yeah. No, well, it's okay. Give us time. So let's get back to Europe. For all those people from the United States, where is the Ukraine?
It's right next to Poland, if that said anything to you, and next to Russia, if that says anything
So
to
it's
you.
down south?
Yep, and we also border with a little bit Germany and a little bit of Czech Republic. So we're.
What's your biggest border? So the Czech Republic has got the biggest swath of border
I think
action?
that would be Russia.
Huh.
I think
Okay.
that would be
Okay.
Russia, and
Who knew?
normally we have quite a lot of Russian influence and a little bit of Polish influence. So Ukraine has been historically separated, well, not separated, but into left bank of the Dnieper River and the right bank. And one of the banks is sort of more dominated by the Russian influence because it's been part of the Russian Empire, and the other part is more dominated by the Poland because part of it has been a part of the Polish Empire.
So, it's a politically conscious society. Does that affect PR at all? Now you're trying to do stuff that's interesting, different, and cool, or getting news out there to your demographic. Is it affected by the political climate at all?
I think it is. I think it is a lot affected still by this old post-Soviet heritage, where you get lots of people who mostly who have lots of trust in newspapers. Because in the old times there was one newspaper, Pravda, The Truth, which was supposedly telling the truth, and lots of the older population, they still believe that most that is said or told or written anywhere in mass media should be true.
Is Pravda still around as a PR firm? Because I know in Tokyo or in Japan, Dentsu, which is the biggest advertising agency in Japan, that was actually the Ministry of Propaganda during World War II. So did they make that transition, or
No,
is it totally
no, they
different?
didn't
Okay,
make it.
they disappeared, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get back a little bit about modern social communication, what's going on there. Facebook, Twitter, all the really big social media words here that we're using. Is it just as popular there? What's happening?
Almost as popular. Twitter is getting lots of attention from the journalists, from the public relations people, from the marketing people, from some of the companies, primarily telecommunication companies, financial companies. Facebook is sort of getting more attention of the office population and sort of the yuppie people, the English-speaking, mostly the English-speaking people, while sort of the Facebook clone the Russian network of Kontakte, which is in contact.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Let's do it back. What's it called again?
Vkontakte or
How do you pronounce it again?
Vkontakte.
Whoa, that's a.
Conductor.
Is it a small word like?
Yeah, it's a small word.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, and it is translated as in contact.
Cool.
Yeah, so which is one-to-one copy of Facebook, but
Same color?
yeah, even
Same
colors are the same.
Really?
Yeah,
All right. Excellent.
So that thing is very popular, especially among younger population. You have all of the teenage people and high school students on it, and I believe that those people are very active online, and they know how to share stuff, how to tag photos, how to upload photos. Every time I get a new CV or resume, I go on Kontakte and find all kind of interesting stuff about my potential employees.
What about small to medium-sized businesses? Are they engaging the population in social media?
Those that are the smart ones and those whose clients are online, they definitely do. I know a couple of smaller, for instance, Apple dealers who are very active online on Facebook, etc., and they go online and they interact. But mostly it's about the owner who already is active and then goes on and pushes that out into the firm.
So okay, so we got kind of like a Facebook clone. We've got Twitter that doesn't have a clone. It's kind of evolving and people kind of catching on. Is there anything else out there? Like, what was the big one that kind of was everybody that had a band?
MySpace.
MySpace. Is there kind of like a MySpace version on it, or does the Facebook clone do the equivalent of what MySpace does and a lot of bands and stuff on it?
I think that would be the Facebook clone.
Really? So basically, they're dominant. They're almost like a monopoly.
Oh yeah. And there is also another version, Odnoklassniki, which I don't know if you heard of, which is sort of classmates, something similar to classmates. We really had a huge bang a couple of years ago, and which covered, which is interesting, the older people too. Those who might go online once or twice, but go and register and find their classmates from like class of 1950. I don't know.
That's so weird because that's kind of what Facebook was all about at the beginning, right? You run into old classmates and old friends through Facebook, and that's kind of what it was like.
Originally, one of the first social networks was Classmates in North America, and then MySpace and Facebook basically took over.
Yeah, but this version, the sort of the Odnoklassniki, the classmates version, it had a huge bang, and if they had invested in functionality into stuff that Facebook has, they might have kept growing, but they got stuck, and they had lots of problems with very huge growth of the number of users, and they just couldn't keep up with the number of servers, and they kept going down, and the connection was slow, so they sort of stopped growing. But it's interesting because lots of sort of the middle-aged and above middle-aged people are on there.
An interesting demographic, actually. Now, okay, what about YouTube? Is that as relevant here? I mean, YouTube is everywhere here. Everybody, if you have a video, that's the first place you go. I mean, there's like 10 or 12 other ones that you can actually post your videos, but really, that's like the default. How about for YouTube in Europe?
I think the popularity of YouTube or any rich media is highly related to broadband connection, which is just coming into place in Ukraine. More and more families getting broadband connection, and offices definitely, but lots of people are still on dial-up, especially in regions. So you cannot watch too much YouTube when you're dialing up.
Wow, okay. So
But we have a Russian clone of YouTube, which is called RuTube.
no way, that is cool. And okay, so how do you spell it so we can all log on and check it out?
RUTUBE.
Excellent. Russian tube.
RuTube.
That's cool. Hey, I'm
gonna
getting an
check it out
account
for
tonight, and I'm putting my stuff up there, man. Now, what about an unknown social media phenomenon that's happening in Europe that we don't even know about here? Everybody's kind of piggybacking the pre-existing stuff like RuTube. That's new. Anything else out there?
I don't think that Eastern Europe has come up with anything very new specifically in terms of technology or application of technology. From what I've been listening hearing on different podcasts from Western, you're still a couple of steps ahead. And most of the social media cases that we talk about at conferences and meetings in Ukraine and in Eastern Europe are all Western based.
Okay, now before we go on to the next, we have a hotspot question.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I did here that came from around the Russian provinces is the chat roulette stuff. That was the only thing, like really specific technology to all the other stuff that really got a good PR here on our side. I mean, did anyone use that in its PR or something?
I think that chat roulette is a very strange phenomena, and I only recall a couple of attempts of trying to go in on chat roulette and seeing very strange stuff there.
So when you say chat roulette, give me a little description. Like, what's it about? Is it like video base or chat base?
It's about a video chat where you log on and you can connect to any person, random person.
Okay, like a chat room, but it's got video capabilities?
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's weird. Okay.
And anytime that I connect, I don't know, I hope that's not me, I get connected to some very strange people. And they show stuff that I wouldn't like my children to see.
Okay. Well,
That's
you know.
one of those networks.
Well, you know what? I before we get to our next question, I remember seeing some really interesting video, and it was it was called The Reality of the Internet chat rooms, and it basically was a room of 5 or 6 people, and they were all pretending they were on a chat room, and it was like this old guy with a beard and looked pretty grody and saying, "Hi, I'm Donna." And it was like a visual representation because you have this buffer zone called the internet, and you're just typing stuff in a chat room and the keyboard. You can be anything you want, and I think a lot of people are very naive about that, and that's very interesting. That if you got a video there, unless you're pretty sophisticated, you can't fake it. And so I could see a little bit of hardcore stuff would probably sneak in there pretty quickly.
Well, going back to your question about some specific uses, it's more not about technology but more about psychology. In the sort of the Russian version of the Classmates, you can rate other people's photos.
Oh.
You can rate from 1 to 5, where 5 is
Yeah,
the
that
best.
reminds me of, we had one here too. It was called Hot or Not.
Yeah, but that's sort of one of the main functions. People go upload their photos from vacations with people, with the family, etc. And you get sort of a rating for every photo.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't just like a headshot. or something.
Yeah, it wasn't like a hot. And one of the companies, one of the agencies did an experiment. What they did, they went to random people and they rated as very low their photos, like 1. And then they made a video where they sort of showed all of those people's responses. And people reacted very aggressively to anyone rating their photos low.
Oh, yeah.
Like lots of swear words, etc.
Well, it's a reality check with a lot of people. This is a fantastic picture, amazing, it's beautiful, and it's really a piece of crap, to use a technical term. And then people actually tell them that, and it shatters their reality. And people don't like that, and they get very aggressive. It's an offensive, defensive mechanism. Now, we have a question from the audience. No, it's been answered?
There's a comment.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
Just a comment that
Yeah.
chat roulette is an interesting concept, but it has been shown here too to be a fairly strong, like sexual hardcore content and not suitable for a lot of audiences, which I think has detracted from what is basically a good idea.
Yeah, and also you got to remember that we live in a society that has a relatively strict feelings about sexuality and sexual experience and stuff like that. And you go to different parts of the world, and those aren't taboos anymore. Like I remember when I was living in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, if you were gay and transvestite, well, then you're just part of the community. No big deal. But here you're like, wow, you're this exotic. Oh, my God, that's so strange. Ooh. And it's like, there's like, what? This is Joe. He's very beautiful. His body is from Sweden because, they spent $30,000 having the body. So the way they looked at it was totally different. And the thing with the internet and the ability to broadcast globally, basically for nothing, YouTube or whatever, you're actually infringing your beliefs on societies that don't look at your video that way. So it's very interesting on a sociological level.
And I think it's a very nice segue to our next speaker.
Before we move on to the next speaker, as a PR professional, how much more prevalent is social media in your job?
Well, as of now, I would say 5% of my agency's profit comes from social media. But I think that this is going to grow. I've heard from some big A-list companies, their marketing managers, who are saying that, for instance, their next year's budget is going, 15% of it is going to be online, which is a lot.
Yeah, it's basically, you look what was happening here 5-10 years ago, and they're evolving in that direction. And that was actually one of the nice, interesting things about working in a country outside of North America. Is like North America was doing all this experimental stuff, and it's evolving, and then suddenly, whoa, look at all these businesses making a ton of money. Let's copy that. So you're looking at their mistakes and not doing them, and then basically jumping to the forefront. It's very interesting.
Thank
Andrew,
you.
Who's next?
Thank you for joining us. And
Yeah.
Ian is coming up next.
All right.
Okay, so our next guest is a professional salesperson in the automotive industry, and he's really excited about social media. He just took a course with Matt Astafan, a social media course, and he's been doing video emails, doing reviews on cars and talking about the industry and whatnot, and sending out emails. And we're going to talk about that and the course that he's taken and how he sees he's going to use social media to promote his business.
Well,
So,
and he's got notes too. So,
we got the course, web-friendly social media
Happened to be in
workshop.
my car.
What made you start?
Well, I've been playing around, like most people in North America, I was playing around with social media, Facebook and different things, LinkedIn, a few other things. There's actually a new one that just started in the automotive industry that I was talking to people about today. It's called dealerelite.net. And that's just for automotive. It's specifically for automotive professionals, which is kind of strange, but interesting in some ways. And I guess what I was seeing in the industry, having been in automotive for close to 10 years and being in sales for close to 20, was I was seeing a move by the manufacturers and even dealers away from traditional media sources initially, and you're seeing this right now, moving away from print ads, going to radio and television, and then I'm seeing even more moving from TV to radio only, and then just an overpopulation of radio to the point where you listen to any radio station, probably 90% of the ads are car ads. So what happens is you just confuse everybody. Yeah. People come in and they're just like, they're listening to 20 car ads in a row, and they have no idea what's going on, or they can't even differentiate, or they're confused. So I sat there and I said, well, why not, being someone in the automotive industry, understanding that dealerships, even though they think, a dealership, say in Vancouver, thinks that their market is Lower Mainland, realistically is probably within 30 to 50 mile radius or 30 to 50 kilometer radius of their store. And more likely, probably 20 kilometer radius of their store is actually their customer base. So to use social media to target that specific customer makes a lot more sense than to say, okay, let's use a shotgun approach and just do radio and TV ads until we run out of money and hope that works. Now, the other change that has happened, and I've seen this over the last close to 10 years, is that when I started in the automotive sales business as a sales professional, I already was prospecting because I'd always done that in every other sales job that I'd done. But in the automotive sales industry, the salespeople are conditioned really not to do much. They sort of hang around and they wait for people to show up, which is not sort of the way I looked at it. And I think that's part of the reason why dealerships have moved towards more advertising, is that they, instead of trying to change behavior of the people in the dealership and elevate that salesperson, what they've done is, we'll just throw more money at advertising. Now, my last job before the one I was in now was as the internet sales manager at Richmond Honda. And I left that job, and the reason was out of frustration. I was given the job basically to manage that side of the business, and they just didn't want to fund it. They didn't want to listen. They didn't have any idea what they were doing, and they just didn't want to spend money. So after a couple of years of that, another opportunity presented itself, and I just basically said, well, I'll continue to do what I'm doing, and I'll also sell cars. And social media to me is the future of marketing of anything, especially in the automotive segment. But I think automotive in general, they don't market well. I mean, if you look at websites in automotive, they're horrible.
Well, I think.
They're just horrible, man.
Well, the thing I think that the automotive industry, that they come from a large agency background, a large agency philosophy. It's like, here's our product, here's our benefits, yada yada. Let's throw $50 million on this product, and let's throw $100 million to this product, and then it'll trickle down to the dealers. What's happening now with social media is the dealer is able to broadcast free through the internet, through YouTube, stuff like that. So now it's there as a representative of that industry, you can actually have an opinion. And you don't have to be this guy that spent his whole career trying to become a broadcaster to have an opinion.
I've known Ian for a little while, and you're not going to find somebody more passionate about cars than Ian. The way that he can have a conversation and talk about cars, you can see the excitement. He loves cars, and that's why I think this is going to work for him with the podcasting or the video blogging. Is people are going to see that this guy genuinely loves what he's doing. His passion is cars, and that's going to come through, and people are going to resonate with that.
Yeah, well, the challenge, thanks for that. And that's one of the many reasons I love the industry. The challenge I've had, and it's actually kind of interesting through this class, I was kind of exploring it, and I'm starting actually probably to eventually run into it, which is that I may have opinions about a Honda product. Okay, I'm doing a review of a product, I'm doing a walk around of a product, doing a walk around eventually of other products as well, which I've already started doing today. I got to basically be blunt about the product. And realistically, the guys at Honda and probably the dealer that I work for won't like that. And the reason is Honda, as a company, like every company, they put their heart and soul into a product, and they believe everything they do makes sense.
But you know what? That's what social media is all about. If you have a company that's switched on and understands social media isn't a broadcast concept, it's a listening concept. If you're really good at social marketing, you send out your message and then you listen to people. Say, you know what? I love this new Honda car, but when I step on the brake, there seems to be a little mushiness. Well, they should be all over that and then realize, like, oh my God, we have a technical problem here. Let's fix it before it becomes a massive problem.
Well, I think that's a good point based on what I was reading about in that there's an automotive video newsletter that happens every day, and they go over all kinds of topics. And recently what happened with Toyota has been a classic example of what not to do. Honda, and one of the many reasons I work for Honda, has been very proactive historically and even currently by saying, listen, there's a problem, we're going to deal with it. But what's interesting about the Toyota case, and I hear it all the time, I mean, I really don't know what to say because I don't want to slam the competition, but at the same time, I'm saying, listen, they could have handled this better. And I think the reason they didn't was the company, unfortunately, like General Motors, that got really large and then had problems, they were chasing General Motors. So then, ironically, they had started to have the same problems. Now, what the problem was, though, wasn't even the recall, wasn't even that people got killed, was the way they handled it was wrong. They didn't actually sit down and say, listen, we've got customers who are angry, and some of them are dead. We've got to deal with this before it becomes a monumental PR disaster. Now, what they've started to do, which is quite interesting, is initially they denied it. Then they looked at, okay, well, the floor mat's the problem because it was the cheapest solution. Then they started attacking the U.S. government, which was insane, especially in the current economic climate. And then they started to blame the customer about it, which was insane as well. But the thing that really killed me about the whole scenario was at no point did they say, listen, we could have handled this better. We should have been proactive. They've thrown a bunch of money at it. I mean, there's been TV ads, crazy, radio ads, crazy, and they've got lots of promotions to sell Toyotas. And I mean, I know people who sell Toyotas, so they were personally hurt by it because basically their sales dropped off a cliff. No one was buying them. Basically, they even Toyota spun that out and said our sales are up, which was not the truth. I mean, it's just not the reality.
Yeah, but what you're talking about is what's happening now with social media. The buying community isn't alone. They're not in a vacuum. What happened 20, 30, 40 years ago? You say, buy a Honda because it's the most amazing thing you'll drive. And people say, well, I had a Honda before. I guess that's true. I'm going to go buy one. Now, they go on the internet, they find it out, they check out the model, and say, oh, there's a problem with the left tire, but here's another model. And then they realize, well, you know what? Honda doesn't have a choice for me, so I'm going to go... I'm going to look at Toyota, or I'm going to look at Chevy. So the people that walk into the showroom now are more informed than the sales guy a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine just this evening, called me when I was here. He works at Richmond, and I happen to work at Carter now. And I've always been someone who focuses on product and solution, not brand. I mean, that's, even though I sell Honda, I'm always happy to help people with other product. And even now as a lease manager, I do even more of that, where I basically say, listen, you're looking at a Mercedes, a Lexus, an Acura, a Honda, maybe a Toyota, whatever it is. Let's find the car that works for you. The focus is on the solution, not the problem. But I agree with you 100%. We do a lot of training at Honda with Honda, and I was in some today. And the challenge with that is that it really isn't the responsibility of the manufacturer to do that. The salesperson should know all the product. But even then, as you say, I had a customer, he came in, his daughter bought a car for me, and I'm not kidding you, had a stack of paper like this. And I talked to him, and I said, listen, you spent probably 50 hours researching this, and that's fantastic. And you have everyone else's opinion, and that's great. Why don't you go drive some cars and determine your own opinion? Because research is great, but at the end of the day, you're living with that car.
Yeah.
And that's my focus is, how do I find that right car for the person? And if I'm not selling it, at least make sure someone takes care of them and knows what they're doing.
What you're talking about is the personal experience. And once you get in the car, you've driven the car, or, let's just get totally off the car thing as a metaphor. People would ask me about cameras. What type of camera should I buy? And I said, well, go to a camera store and pick up the camera. If it feels good, you'll tend to take more pictures with it than something that feels clunky and uncomfortable. The same thing with a car. And traditionally, that's what, get in the car and drive it. The car will sell itself.
Well, that's the test drive, right?
Agree. But the ironic thing, and this is something that drove me nuts in my last job, was that when you have 80, I think the statistics are 80 to 90% of people who buy cars in North America today spend 8 to 10 hours online before they come in a dealership. But ironically, the dealer, and this is crazy, the dealer and dealer staff generally believe, and this is, I think, insane, generally believe that customer doesn't know anything when they come in the door, which is insane.
Yeah.
Like that's, it's crazy.
But what's happened with social media and the client catching up and becoming more educated, the corporate structure hasn't realized that, and they're not doing internal communication that's communicated. I mean, if the head office guys come and say, hey, by the way, we're flying in an expert, and he's going to chat with you guys about the new sales paradigm, and he says, guess what? The customer knows more than you. So get them in the car and get the car to sell itself. They're not doing stuff like that.
Their challenge, and it's kind of ironic, but their challenge is like in any big, huge, economic system where you have different levels. They've done something one way for such a long time. I mean, when I started in the car business, and this wasn't that long ago, 10 years ago, okay, I was doing everything on paper. There was no computer involved in what I did for the most part. Stuff was written down on paper. I'm not kidding you, like handwriting, okay? Eventually after a couple years in the industry, I got to the point where I was sitting in front of a computer with the customer, and I was actually able to talk about payments and pricing and this kind of stuff. And that sort of shifted even more now, where it's like they want you to talk about that, but they don't want you to give them details. So that's crazy too. But eventually what will happen is either you'll have a systemized flat level pricing structure like Toyota tried, which didn't work in Canada, which was price fixing, obviously. Saturn tried it, and they're out of business now, but they tried that. Or the proactive dealers will actually sit down with the customer and say, listen, this is what the car costs. This is what we need to make. These are our costs, and these are the options you can add. And that's basically how I sell cars. I say, listen, this is what we pay for the vehicle. We've got a profit margin of X. We can't make, obviously, all the profit margin because you're telling me we can't. We can't make a loss. There's a certain amount we have to make. That's X. These are additional fees that most dealers charge, that kind of thing. Some dealers charge more. Some dealers charge less. See if you can work that out so it works.
So is it
basically? I just treat customers as intelligent, and I treat them with respect, and I tell them the truth. That's what I do.
You were mentioning that when you're doing your videos, you're worried that you have to be blunt, and management might not like that.
Yeah, because it's basically going behind the red curtain. You're actually exposing what's really going on, which they're all trying to protect, right?
Well,
can you do it in a transparent way and frame it and say, hey, Honda, if you're listening, this is room for improvement without doing the product?
Well, the challenge is, and I'll explain to you what the challenge is. You're selling a product, be it a car, be it a motorcycle, be it a TV, doesn't really matter, whatever it is, okay? Dealers have been doing this a long time. The dealership I work for now has probably been doing it 30 years. Richmond was doing it around 30 years. Some dealers in North America have been doing it 100 years or longer. And there's actually some interesting articles about that evolution from buggy to car, whatever. What's happened because customers are more informed is obviously they're smarter. And in a lot of cases, as you've already pointed out, they're smarter than the person selling them the car and the person managing the person who's selling them the car. Okay. Now those two people haven't evolved and haven't figured it out, right? But the customer has. So what the customer does is they minimize the profit margin for the dealer by learning how to negotiate and understanding the dynamics and figuring that out. The dealership understands that, so what they do is they have other charges, business office being one of them, but other charges that exist anyway, to maintain a minimum profit margin because their overhead actually hasn't gone down, it's gone up. They have to make XYZ per car to keep the doors open. Now, what people don't understand is it isn't the car that makes them the money.
It's the service.
Service covers most of your overhead.
Parts.
Parts cover some of it. But business office is where a vast majority of the money is made in the car buying process. The salesperson actually makes, in a lot of cases, less money than the business office person who handles the financing and extended warranty and those kind of things. Now, these different profit centers, because when someone looks at a car dealership, they see one business. Really, they're looking at probably 4 to 6 businesses within one umbrella. Now, what the dealership knows is they can sell XYZ amount of cars. Good times, bad times, they sell X. They need to make Y amount of money. So the only way to do that is to basically structure each item they sell to make XYZ amount of profit. Now, as a customer, if you have a salesperson who understands that whole dynamic, which is virtually nobody, because they keep you in the dark, then you can clearly explain that. This is what we have to make a car. We'd like to make more, but this is what we can make. And unlike some retail, we don't have a big margin. People's perception or customers' perception is you're selling a $50,000 car, you've got a 100% markup. Well, you don't. It's not like you're selling a pair of shoes where you got 300 points. Average car, and this is not high-end cars, but your average car probably has somewhere between 5 to 7% total markup. Now, a high-end car, depending on package and stuff, might have 12%, and a really high-end car like a Ferrari might have as much as 15%. But when you look at that, when you look at the cost structure of carrying, say, $10, $15 million in inventory in a Canadian dealer and the cost of overhead of, say, 100 staff members, it's significant. And you've got to make X a car. You just have to. You have no choice. It's just what it is.
Now that you've moved on to this social media course and you've focused on your video emailing, what else are you doing now? Are you marketing through Facebook? Are you using Twitter? What did you learn in the course?
Well, I started out with Twitter, and that was the first course we did. So I've been growing that and doing some stuff there. I then moved to Facebook, which was the second one we did, and I'm growing that as well. LinkedIn was something I was already playing around with, which wasn't covered, but I'm doing that as well. YouTube, I'm most active in, and the reason is I've always since for a number of years, I've been doing email marketing aggressively to my customers on a regular basis. I've also been doing mail-based and phone-based marketing. And I see as video newsletters being the answer just because other people in my industry who work in training in the industry have used it effectively and I know it works. And I've started by doing a monthly one. I've done a couple of those, but I'm going to start doing a weekly one that people can sign up for online where they can get this insider information basically by signing up. So I'm going to be doing special videos that'll probably be private. As they join, they can get those videos, which will be on these different topics, which people want to know about.
Now, we mentioned before the show that you haven't set that up as a video podcast.
No, I haven't, because I was unaware that, I guess not unaware, but just didn't know how to do it.
No, leveraging it. Well, I mean, you've already got the content, so it's just leveraging existing content.
Yeah, I mean, I got video, but I don't have an audio podcast I don't have, right?
Yeah, but a podcast is not just audio, it's any media file that's syndicated.
Yeah, so it could be done that way, yeah.
Via RSS. So, a good portion of the podcasts in iTunes are video podcasts.
Yeah.
So,
and actually, they're probably more popular than the audio podcasts.
Oh, okay. So it could be done in iTunes as well.
Definitely.
Okay. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's not going to cost you a dime. All you have to do is register, put it on, like we talked about in the previous last week's show, on an RSS feed, submit the podcast, away you go, and people can subscribe.
Yeah, you might pay a little bit more for your storage, right? That's
You will need a hosting
$15
account.
instead of $5, but hey,
Not a big
$15,
deal.
no big deal.
Not a big deal.
Before we wrap the show, let's talk a little bit about the future, what you see for the future for car dealerships and social media. Do you see anything?
I think that manufacturers and these smart dealerships will get into it and do it effectively. I think the process in terms of car buying, people hate. I know this. It was shocking when I first got in the business, and I know that people hate it, and I know that when I started changing the process, it got management upset, but people were happier about it. So I see that eventually you will see a revolution in the process because people don't like it.
Yeah,
They don't like the conflict. They don't like the process.
Yeah.
They just don't like it.
So social media is actually going to change the way
I think so.
the industry is. So it's a revolution.
Yeah, I think it will definitely change it for sure over time. I mean, it may take time, but it'll change it. They're going to have to adapt to it, in my opinion.
Okay, now I think we got a couple of questions, at least one question.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I mean, as you discussed about the revolution, I think there's something maybe even deeper than that. I mean, and I would like to listen to your opinion. Most of the ad agencies, people in marketing, have a saying. I mean, at the end of it, the buying choice is an emotional one.
Yes, for sure.
At the end of it, and you're saying, I see more and more people coming with lots of data. So
Yes.
do you think the internet or all that it entails is actually changing that buying paradigm? It's moving away from the emotional and all the rest is rational to a more truly rational choice?
It really
Or is it now, with all the data, it's still at the end of it an emotional one?
I think that's a hard question to answer, and the reason is, and I'll go through it, is that people are, and I've dealt with customers over a number of years, there's a range of people. Okay, you're going to have people that are very analytical, and they're the guys who read the consumer's report, they do research to the day as long, a car they look at as an appliance, they're not really emotionally connected to that car.
But the mass of the people.
The mass people that are emotionally connected to a vehicle,
Yeah.
it will change the way they negotiate that car deal.
Okay.
It will change the way they choose what they're buying, but eventually, at the end of the day, driving that vehicle will connect with that person because people do buy cars emotionally. They justify it rationally.
Yeah.
Now, some people are just analytical and they don't justify it at all. It's just they look at it like a refrigerator. Okay, I'm going to work. I don't care. It's a refrigerator. I don't know why people are connected to this. It's a machine.
Yeah.
I had a guy yesterday like that. It doesn't care about the feature. Doesn't care.
So
Look of it is not important.
So from your point of view, you have to get them emotional.
I think people are emotional anyway. I don't think I have to get them emotional. People have an emotional connection with the automobile in North America. I'm assuming that's true worldwide. I've only been to some countries, but people have an emotional connection with vehicles. They do. It's an emotional experience. It's what it is. So I don't think that's going to change. Unless they have really ugly cars, then maybe it will.
Well, that wraps it up, I think, for this episode. Thanks, Ian, for your thoughts on social media in the automotive industry. And any final thoughts, Bob?
No, I'm pretty cool. I'm happy with my beer. And thank you very much for our special guest from Europe, the Ukraine, with some very, very interesting stuff that's going on. And I'm definitely going to check out that Russian
RooTube.
That is so
RooTube.com.
cool. Come on, RooTube. Sounds even great.
Oh, and
maybe,
I got to put a plug in for my website, lovebuyingcars.com.
Oh, how did you score it? When did you get that one? Lovebuyingcars.com. That is nice.
That's a great website.
And .ca. Just so you know.
Lovebuyingcars.com
Or
and
.ca.
But
Excellent. And that's a wrap. So we'll see you again next week.
all right, wait, hey, thanks guys. That was awesome.